Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer for Geek Vibes Nation, and I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dylan Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for geekvibesnation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Attic new release roundup. I'm really excited because it's
You're
been a
getting
few weeks.
choked up. You're so excited.
I know, right? I'm getting verklempt, but I'm really excited because I've taken a little holiday break. We are back together now. We got the band back. We are excited to talk about some really cool home videos. And if you're new here, basically what we do is we just go back and forth and we talk about the latest home video releases. Some are good, some are bad, some are like Candyman 3 level bad. I think that is still our benchmark for worst for longtime
It's
viewers.
definitely around there. It's around there, definitely.
Having said that, I'm going to kick this party off with my first title. And this is one that I kind of vaguely remember hearing about, but never had seen. And that is Babes in Toyland with Keanu Reeves and Drew Barrymore, friend of unions everywhere. um, that's all I'm going to say on that subject.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this was a strange one, and I did kind of look up a little bit of the history of this. It's a made-for-TV movie from 1986, and of course, it does feature a very young Keanu Reeves, Drew Barrymore. This movie falls into that case of not good, and it's strange, but it's never so strange it becomes enjoyable. And I kind of found this to be a little bit of a slog to get through. And so I always like to try to, do a little bit of more homework on some of these releases. And while I was researching this title, I came across that there is actually the TV. So this is a TV movie, like I said, and when it originally aired, it was over 2 hours long. And there are VHS rips of this version that can be found, which are labeled the director's cut. So if you are curious, you can look that up. But yeah, I don't know. I thought it was very colorful and whimsical, and it was like the performances were all right. I I don't know. It was just kind of boring for me. Um, I can't imagine wanting to see the 2 hours and 20-ish minutes because again it's like I was white knuckling just getting through this release. And again, there's things that I like about it. The production design's really interesting. I can't think of the dad from Punky Brewster, but he plays the villain and he's great. I think the whole cast is awesome. You can tell that they're really vibing with each other. The chemistry's really there. It just didn't work for me, and it also looked very cheap. Now, this does one thing I also wanted to note was this does have the original full screen version as well as a widescreen aspect ratio version. If you want, they give you that option. This doesn't really have any other features. This has a trailer. I think it would have been interesting to have like a historian commentary, um, or like I know Amanda Reyes has this fabulous book about TV movies. Just giving a plug on that. Um, her commentary would have been awesome, but I think that if you're a big fan of these actors, or if you're a completist, or maybe you have fond memories of this special, it's a really, I mean, it's the release itself is pretty good looking. Like I said, it's a very colorful movie. The colors do really pop here. Thankfully, they don't look, the colors never look oversaturated or overworked. Um, so, I mean, obviously, I think like whoever had the footage took care of it because it looks very nice, especially for its age. Although 86, that's not old. That's not old.
That's
So,
true. That's true.
but yeah, it's fine. Again, especially if this is something that holds a special meaning for you. But I really didn't grow up with this, so I maybe am less sentimental, but it's fine.
For an opposing viewpoint, I won't get too far into my thoughts. You can check probably like 4 or 5 episodes back. It's one of my solo ones that I did, but I covered this. And while I don't think it's a great movie. I think I didn't grow up with it either, so there's not a nostalgia factor. I think I first watched it in 2020, and then I voluntarily watched it again this whenever the Blu-ray came out. But like, all I'll say about this is, where else can you find a Christmas movie with a whole song dedicated to the wonders of Cincinnati? That's all I'll say.
Oh
Just
yeah,
a whole song.
what do they keep calling it?
I come from C-I-N-C-I-N-N-A-T-I, Cincinnati, the best town in Ohio, USA.
At first they called it Cincy, but since Cincy is so natty, they named it Cincinnati, so they say.
Because Cincy was so natty, that's why they call it Cincinnati.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna have to get you this, find the soundtrack to this, send it to you, you know. But no, it was also wild how casual like workplace sexual harassment was.
Yeah.
At the beginning I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's a wild movie, but I've grown to enjoy it more. I understand why you don't though, but I'm glad it's on Blu-ray, because we had to like find it some random way whenever we watched it a few years back. So I'm glad it at least has an official copy, even if it's not the director's cut.
Yeah.
My first title is one from our friends at Scream Factory, and that is the new collector's edition Blu-ray release of Stephen King's Thinner, which is the first time I've ever seen this movie, and I have thoughts. So this movie, it's something. And I was watching it and I was like, okay, this movie has a lot of like fat phobia in it and everything, and there's just a lot of just dated like depictions of obesity and like how characters react to it, and just really poor special effects makeup work and stuff. And I could probably get over that more if they had handled other things differently, but there's just like a confluence of different elements, and I'm just like, oof. Especially like how they depict, like, there's just the typical like evil like stereotype and all kinds of stuff. But obviously the bare minimum plot is that there is a very obese man who he's a lawyer, and he's like been like trying to lose weight, and his wife's like kind of tracking his weight and trying to get him to lose weight. And one night him and his wife are out, and she starts performing an act on him and gets him a little bit distracted, and he ends up mowing down and killing this old woman who is crossing the street. And he kind of uses his status as a lawyer with like friends in high places to get out of any legal repercussions. And once he does that, the woman's dad puts a curse on him and the people around him, and he starts to radically lose weight pretty quickly. And at first he's like, oh, this is awesome, this is great. But they soon realize he's going to keep getting thinner and thinner until basically he'll be nothing. And so that's the basic plot of things. And I didn't completely hate the movie, but there's just a lot of things that I think did not work well. And mostly I think it would be tonally how they handled this issue. The lead man, who is the obese man who's been cursed, he acts really like a doofus, and he just like, it almost has like kind of like zany music around some of his actions and stuff, and just like he's delighting in the fact that he can like just like eat whatever he wants, but he still gets thin. And they really play this up to like comical effect, and he just really looks. You kind of seem like you had a similar reaction to how they depicted Brendan Fraser and The Whale, like how he just looks so gross and just like food all over his face at one point, like how he kind of gorged himself. This is kind of a different thing that was taken more seriously, and this is more comedic. There are just certain things about this portrayal where I think if they would have went more, not necessarily gritty, but more serious, like kind of taking the subject matter a little bit more seriously, I think it would have made things not seem so odd and just kind of off-putting a little bit. And I don't need all of my movies to have like likable characters, but there's very few likable characters in this. And the main thrust of this movie isn't actually he's supposed to be learning about like it should be a journey of him figuring out how he's like a horrible person and he needs to come to terms with that and kind of like ask for forgiveness, and he's mainly looking out for himself, and then eventually this just turns into like him blaming his wife for everything that has happened to him and like wanting to punish her. This woman, like, yes, was giving you a blowy in your car because she like was trying to like do something nice for you, and then you end up suspecting her of infidelity and calling like saying that she's the cause of all your problems, so she needs to die. It's wild. The messages that the movie comes away with. I'm not going to spoil the movie and everything, but just like how the movie ends up and like the karmic payoff and stuff, I kind of saw it coming. It isn't even that satisfying because there's like other elements that don't completely like I don't know. It's a weird movie, and I just tonally. I haven't read the Stephen King source material, so I don't know how it stacks up. I'm sure it's equally problematic in certain ways because Stephen King has a lot of dated stuff in his portrayals of different like minority groups and different other races of people and stuff. So Thinner, it's a movie that I enjoyed parts of. I love the special effects work. I didn't really like the bat suit makeup effects, but the other special effects makeup I thought was interesting. I would have been much more intrigued to learn more about the other people who were cursed. Like there's like the judge is being cursed with like a lizard curse, so his like skin is like turning to like lizard scales and everything. I think that's really cool. And then there's like another person who helped them who has their own kind of curse upon them. And I would have liked to learn a little bit more about these different curses and how they're impacting people besides just this thinner curse, which I also think could have went more extreme, but it is what it is. So this movie's a little bit of a mixed bag for me, considering I know I've actually heard that it's not the most popular or beloved Stephen King adaptation, but I was still interested because I thought the concept could be unique, and it is, but there's a lot of stuff that's holding me back from really loving it. And there's a little bit keeping me back from completely loving this release. It is a great release. I think it's a big missed opportunity for it to be a 4K release because this was previously released on Blu-ray from Olive Films, which didn't have as many special features. They've added a lot of new special features. They've carried over a commentary track, and there's 2 new commentary tracks. There's a range of new interviews, like with director Tom Holland, one of the actors, and like the makeup effects artist. All those interviews run from about 13 to 18 minutes. And then there's like a vintage making of featurette and trailers and stuff like that. And this Blu-ray release, it does look good. There's no indication that it's been newly remastered or anything, but it looks nice overall. It's a really rich and vibrant picture. I didn't notice a lot of digital anomalies. DTS 5.1 and 2.0 audio all sounded great. I just think that if you're going to re-release this as a collector's edition, especially with a title that has Stephen King attached to it, I think it probably could have sold well in 4K, and I'm surprised it didn't make it that. But it's a good release, especially if you like special features and if you're a fan of the movie. It looks good and everything. I just think a 4K release could have really benefited this. So if you're a fan, if you already own it, judge whether or not you think the special features are worth it, because there are a good number of special features. Seems like a little bit of missed opportunity, but Stephen King's Thinner, all around, a little bit of mixed bag for me.
Well, at least it wasn't thin on special features. But so my 2 cents really quick is I grew up liking this. I recorded it off of cable. Now I watched it pretty recently, and I agree with you. I'm like, ooh, I didn't remember how problematic that was. And I mean, all that stuff was always there, of course, but thankfully we're a little bit more aware of dated stuff. I think even beyond that, like you said, I think like the script is a little shaggy. The narrative isn't maybe as like fulfilling as it could be, but I have a little bit of a soft spot for this still. So I'll probably pick this up, but I'll probably wait for a sale. But one thing that you do want to pick up is my next title. And for fans of like 80s horror, this is kind of a must own, and that is the 4K of the Monster Squad. And here's the back. Now, right from jump, I wanted to just say that if you've been holding out for the long out of print Lionsgate Blu-ray release. This ports over everything from that release, so you don't have to double dip. It's all in one package. And what I love is there is the 2018 documentary, Wolfman's Got Nards, which is fantastic. I got to review that during its festival run. I got to talk to the director a little bit. Very nice. Obviously, diehard fan. But yeah, so I just wanted to like up top, that's some cool information for y'all. If you were wondering if this kind of is the one release that you can just cast aside all of it, all other releases. But yeah, as for the movie itself, I mean, if you're a horror movie fan, I feel like you've seen this, but it is kind of like, I think this is maybe unfairly compared to the Goonies, but it very much has that vibe. It also kind of has that like these 80s kids feel like kids. They're a little bit rough around the edges. They're a little like foul-mouthed and precocious, and it feels a little bit more rough and ready than the Goonies. And of course, like this has like the classic monsters recontextualized for the 80s, which I think is such a fun idea. I'm a little bit sad in a way that like I didn't grow up with this movie, so I don't maybe have the nostalgia like some people do. But having said that, it's a fun movie. It is like kids going on an adventure and monsters and like hilarious shit, and they talk about Wolfman having nards. What more could you possibly want from a movie? So this is what the inside looks like. There's nothing. Oh, so I did want to point this out. Wolfman's Got Nards has its own dedicated disc, which is awesome. And then you, of course, you have the Blu-ray and 4K disc. But yeah, so like I said, this is definitely next level. The 4K, I think, looks better than any other Blu-ray release thus far. This was previously released by Olive and Lionsgate, and those were fine, but I think it didn't have that like pop in color, the clarity. I know Olive in particular has always a spotty record when it comes to their transfers. So if you're like new to Monster Squad, this is the release you want to have. If you're a diehard fan and maybe you skipped a generation or something of home video, get it. It's awesome. Again, it's such a fun movie. Not in like I met Tom Noonan at a convention. He is creepy as hell. I mean that in a loving way. He very much is like the Tooth Fairy from Manhunter. If you've ever seen that movie, he is creepy in that, and he was creepy. Like the picture we took was him creeping up behind me and then putting his like hands over like, yeah. It was like he was definitely in character. It was cool. But this is a fun one, and this is a hell of a great release.
Absolutely. I checked that one out about a month or so ago, a little bit after Halloween, and I thought it was a terrific release. So many special features. In addition to the Wolfman's Got Nard documentary, which is feature length, there's also another like feature length documentary on their actual disc that runs about an hour and a half as well. So there's like almost 3 hours worth of just like documentaries about this film in addition to the other special features. So it's packed to the gills. It's wild.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It's I like that again, that documentary was, I think, a port over. I went into my collection just to double check, but yeah, it's like I love that when they can get the rights to everything and just put it on one release. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic release. My next title is from our friends at Classic Flicks, and this is the 1951 drama Cause for Alarm with Loretta Young, who I really love. This one was a really interesting find. This is stars Loretta Young as a housewife who she has had fallen in love with her husband before the war, and they decided to get married. And he went off to war. Whenever he returned, he wasn't quite himself. And I guess today we would probably diagnose that as PTSD. And you kind of see him kind of deteriorating in his like bed upstairs, and his wife, the Loretta Young character, is trying to take care of him, but he's starting to slowly lose it. And unbeknownst to her at first, he crafts a letter to be like delivered to the district attorney that he believes that his wife is conspiring with his friend, who is also his doctor, to overdose his medication and kill him. So in the event of his death, he's saying that it should be investigated. But it's mainly just him losing his mind. But this all kind of culminates in one day where she does find herself kind of at odds with her husband, like at his very end of just like kind of mental instability, and like she loves him but also doesn't want to go to jail if anything happens to him. And it kind of all boils down to like this real tense thriller of like this woman's like one of the worst days you can have, of just in terms of just like things just popping up, and like tensions just being unbearably high. And they kind of escalate in really, like, it's not in traditional ways where like maybe you necessarily have like a heavy like intimidating someone or stuff. It's just like different things, like a nosy neighbor coming in at an inopportune time, or just like unexpected drop-in visitors, and all this kind of stuff coming together at once, just for this really nice like tight film noir. Drama more than noir, but kind of noirish. And it's only like an hour and 14 minutes. So it's very expeditious in its plotting, and it just works very well. And I love Loretta Young, as I said, and she does a fantastic job in this as a woman who's starting to lose her mind under these stresses herself, and just some of the gaslighting and all this stuff going on. It's a really good watch, and I really enjoyed discovering this one. It's a really good one, and Classic Flicks treated this one well. This does come from a new restoration. Been newly restored from mostly good elements. There's a title text card right before the film that talks about there was an incomplete version of this film available, and in order to present the full version of this film, they had to pull like from some prints for like a couple brief like shots. So there's a few shots where there's like a little bit of a downturn in quality. They don't last super long, maybe like 30 seconds at the most. But other than that, the rest of the movie is very nice and clear and resolves very well. And even the kind of the print elements that they have to switch to, they're not a big distraction. I think they kind of blend pretty well with the rest of the picture. There's not much in the way of special features. There's just like an original trailer, but in terms of just like a really enjoyable movie that I'm glad I have in my collection, I think Cause for Alarm's a really good one, and I would recommend it.
That sounds really interesting. That wasn't on my radar, but I do love a good paranoid thriller, with a little bit of like he's kind of losing his mind and the gaslighting. And you were saying that they handled that element pretty interestingly. So that sounds cool. So my next title was one I have to say, I probably when this was first announced, I probably let out a like yell of happiness, because I'm a big Billy Wilder fan. So for a while, I was holding off on getting this title on DVD or Blu-ray, because I was hoping a 4K release would come out, and it did. And it is Stalag 17, and it's great. And inside, nothing going on the inside of that. So yeah, kind of like all of Billy Wilder, this movie feels like it's headed one way, and they throw a nice curveball your way, which I don't want to spoil. But this is basically a group of men I guess it's like a POW camp, and there is one prisoner that seems to be getting special treatment, or there's things where isn't quite adding up, and they think maybe he might be like a spy, a mole. There's things that they do, they get caught, but they don't know why. So it's this really good paranoid thriller. Although it has a little bit of like levity in it, it's by no means a comedy, but it's interesting because it feels a little bit Hogan's Heroes-ish. So like I believe I heard that was sort of like semi the inspiration. Like Otto Preminger, the famous film director, plays one of the officers, and I believe that he kind of feels like Schultz, only kind of played up a little bit more comedically. When you think about it, like I won't go on at the tangent this long, but like Hogan's Heroes is a wild premise for a show, for a comedy. Anyway.
It is.
Um, so so this 4K looks great. It's another stellar job by Kino. It's black and white, but you do get that really nice crisp definition. You know, there wasn't really any elements of like blurring or like artifacts or debris. The contrast between the black and the white was really nicely handled. I know like some 4K black and white movies tend to wash out a little bit, and I feel like that wasn't the case here, which is really nice. It sounds great. We get 3 audio commentary tracks, and then you get a 2 featurettes that are really fantastic. And yeah, I think that like this is a movie that like you really want a lot of historical context, and you want a lot of context in the time and place it was made. So these commentary tracks like more than give you that context. And I love this movie before, but dipping into these commentary tracks, like it gave me a deeper appreciation for this film. And yeah, it's great. If you've never seen this, like treat yourself. It's great. I mean, I know some people are like, "Oh, war movies, not my thing," but it's not really a war movie. I mean, it is and it isn't. It's the backdrop of a POW camp, but it's more again like a little bit of a cat and mouse game, a little bit of a paranoid thriller. Gets Christmassy at the end, so it can be a Christmas movie if you want. There's a Christmas tree, all that good stuff. So just saying. So it's great, and there are 2. So this is the 3rd Billy Wilder film that Kino is released on 4K, and then there's a 4th one that Criterion did. So it's a great time to be a fan of this particular director. So keep bringing it on. I love it, and this is again, I feel like a must own.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever it came out on 4K a little bit ago, that was the first time I'd ever seen it, and I was very glad to have finally checked that off the list. And that's a great 4K release. I highly recommend it as well. My next title is another one from Classic Flicks. I talked about the first season of this show probably like 2 years ago. It's been a while since I've talked about this series, so I'm glad they kind of were able to finish it off. This is the 2nd season of the Abbott and Costello Show, season 2. This is the final 26 episodes of the series onto disc. There's not really anything underneath the disc besides more episode descriptions, but will show them off to you, so you just get 2 sides of that. And this maintains the quality of the first season. It's a little bit different. The first season was a little bit more like segmenty, skitty, where they were a little usually different segments throughout an episode, usually tied to a common theme, or they would just pick out like maybe like a star segment as the title of the show. This one's a little bit more narrativized. Usually, like the first episode, for instance, Abbott and Costello, they play these pest control people, and you see them throughout one episode. It's kind of like skit based, but it's just like they find themselves in different people's like apartments or something, or like one misunderstanding leading to them going to the next apartment that goes to another misunderstanding, and it's just kind of like fun within this universe. So they're not always playing the same people, but it's usually a running narrative throughout an episode for this 2nd season, and I think it still works very well. It gives them a lot of room to work within while still just like delivering a nice narrative. But it's also deeply hilarious. I love Abbott and Costello. They're really funny, and they are really good in their shows. Some of their stuff is like you can tell is recycled from some of their older stuff, but even them repurposing certain things, I think works well, and they kind of give it new life. And it's just a really fun time. And this release is fantastic. Just if you've seen the first season, you'll know that they've taken such great pains to like make this series pristine, and they continue that with the second season. This was restored with the help of the 3D Film Archive and the Library of Congress, and looks fantastic. All 26 episodes are terrific and nice, like refined film grain. No damage that I could ascertain. Really solid sound. Like the audio comes through nice with good fidelity, and it has 2 commentary tracks and a good number of like archival special features. It's kind of all lumped in under one assorted features, and you just click it, and it's about 30-ish minutes long, and there's just like a back-to-back different things that are played. Which, interestingly, one of the first few things are actually leftover special features that they discovered after putting out the first season set. So they're like, okay, here's an intro, like a long lost intro that we did not know about from the first season episode that we've now like we're including in this set. So I think that's cool, even though it's not the first season set. They were like, oh, we found this, and they weren't going to be like, oh, we can't do anything. But they're like, oh, we'll just put it as a special feature on the second season. They just kind of like put those all there. So there's stuff like different like scenes without like laugh tracks, and like real oddball commercials that probably would have otherwise been lost to time, like fun Campbell's soup ads and stuff like that, and just different kind of cool nifty special features that kind of all total to about 30 minutes in length. So some really fun, unique special features, fantastic audiovisual presentation, and just a really funny show. So the Abbott and Costello show, if you're a fan of these two, get both seasons from Classic Flicks, because they put such great care into it, and I think they really deserve our support for like championing such a project.
Nice. That's awesome. I know you were a big fan of the first season, and I need to get into that. I was kind of waiting to see if they maybe do like a complete series now, or they usually run some pretty good sales. So I might like, I'm thrifty, so I'll probably wait till that's on sale, but that sounds way worth it. So my final, not final title, but final 4K title is, oh my God, it's such a great movie, Face Off.
Yes.
I was so ridiculously happy when I saw they were doing this. I only had a DVD copy of this, and I love this movie so much. It is so weird. It's like I was trying to really think about like how I feel about it. Like it's very campy, but it has a sincerity to it that only heightens that campiness a little bit for me. Like I think it's Travolta's character is like lost his son, and he always does this weird face touching thing that he does that a lot in this. Like Nicolas Cage is of course Nicolas Caging to the max. I love his whole peach stick. That's great. Joe Bob Briggs makes a cameo in this, which is awesome. That's always fun. And yeah, I mean, John Woo is great. And as campy and intentionally campy as this is, the action is really on point. And you do have like some of the cliches that John Woo sort of, I mean, he kind of almost like came up with these things like the doves, the slow-mo, the just almost operatic levels of like carnage and shootouts. I think like what was it, The Killers, or no, Hard Boiled, I can't remember which, has maybe one of the best shootouts in a movie ever, period. That's not up for debate. And yeah, so John Woo, he's amazing at action. The actors are just devouring the scenery. It's great. It's fantastic. There's really nothing. I mean, I'll show you the thing, but it's the same. It would have been kind of cool if like the cover had one face and you lifted it off and it was the other face.
Yeah.
I mean, that might have been a little bit elaborate. But so here's the inside. Yeah, so as far as it looks, again, this was a revelation to me because I had only seen like a not very good DVD that I rocked for a while. But yeah, like just the colors really pop. I mean, this is a movie that is very stylish. John Woo has a very particular kind of brand. Not that everything is just candy coated color, but I mean, the colors that he does use really pop nicely here. Again, contrast is really nice. It doesn't look over processed. And yeah, a lot of details pop out. Again, going back to my old DVD to this, it's just like, yeah, you can't even compare it. Has a really nice grain. It has that grain texture to it that's nice. It has that nice film look quality. I hate when that's scrubbed out, but this is very much present here. Um, Special features, I believe a lot of these are port overs from the previous releases. And I believe the featurettes might be new to this release. And correct me if I'm wrong. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe everything is ported over. I don't remember anything specifically like a new commentary track, but maybe there was. But other than that, I think it's all just port overs.
Yeah, because I remember, like, I do recall like DVD having some like decent features. So yeah. So yeah, once again, it's nice, kind of like Monster Squad. You get everything. You get the movie looking fantastic, and god damn it, I love this movie so much. It makes me so happy. I'm such a dork. I love this movie. It's amazing.
Yeah, ever since that came out on 4K, I've just been randomly walking around the house, and I'll just like go by Jessica, and I would just be like, I could eat a peach for hours. Just like
Hours.
it's great. It's fun. So yeah, pick that one up. Good job, Kino, for rescuing that from Paramount, because I'm sure they did a better job. And speaking of, interestingly enough, from Paramount, my next title is Varsity Blues on 4K. So yeah, Paramount 4K title, and this one I had actually always really wanted to see, and I had the old Blu-ray. I picked it up kind of cheap at Target, and oh, it's interesting to note this is one of the few 4K catalog titles these days that comes with a DVD, or not DVD, a Blu-ray. It's not just a 4K disc; there's also the Blu-ray. But so I'd had the old cheap Blu-ray from Target from a while ago, but I just never got around to watching it. And now with this 4K, I was like, okay, now's the time because I got to talk about it, but also I wanted to watch it. And the film itself, I would say it's good, not great for me. In terms of sports tales, I think it's lacking a little bit something for me. Like it's just made in a time period where it's just very by the numbers. I think something like a Friday Night Lights, even the movie is much more effective than this. But it's just James Van Der Beek is your lead, and he kind of plays a guy who's talented at football, but he's not the star. He's just like the backup for the quarterback, who's also his best friend, who one day gets in a serious accident that causes him like a horrific injury that puts James Van Der Beek in the spotlight. And once he's called up to kind of like take the spotlight, he does kind of succumb to that quarterback mindset because everyone's praising him because it's like this insane football town where like football is life. And he's getting like all these women are throwing themselves at him, and like all the like he's getting out of like trouble for free from like the cops because they like the football program as well. So he lets it get into his head, and he's also kind of clashing against his coach, played by John Boyd, who's just like a despicable asshole. He's like really terrific at playing just a horrendous human being. And it's just kind of all this football life. And there's things I like about it. There's things that have aged very poorly, but it's entertaining. I just like compared to certain sports movies that I really love, it just doesn't quite meet those standards. It's just kind of a more familiar tale. But I can understand why if anyone like really loves this movie, it's like a kind of a comfort watch, especially for people who grew up in the 90s and just kind of had this around them. I think I can understand why it'd be a little bit more popular. But 4K wise, Paramount kind of they don't completely succumb to their worst tendencies, but there's a little bit of it. It's been given a new 4K remaster, and largely it looks really good. But there's times where it doesn't, and I think they need to just really take a look at their encoding prowess, because especially like right off the bat, I was surprised. There's during the opening credits, there's a scene where the Scott Conn character, who's kind of like the real rascal of the group and stuff, he's coming out of his house and going to jump in the truck, hit the like back of this truck. And I looked at I was like, oh, am I watching streaming? Because it like dipped way down in quality. And I looked at like the bit rate, and it was like hovering before that to like in that 70s and 80s, and it like dropped to like high 20s, low 30s, and I was just like, Jesus, this does not look good. And that was the most egregious example, but there are just moments here and there that are just not as handled as well as maybe they should be. And I think that Paramount should ultimately take a little bit more care towards some of their catalog titles, because I know they have consumers very worried each time a movie from them comes out, because they don't know if they're going to be getting the good Paramount with something like Pulp Fiction or Titanic, or if they're going to be getting the bad Paramount with something like Friday the 13th or Fatal Attraction or any number of titles like The Firm that I've heard. So like this isn't a bad title. It's just one of the ones where you're just like, oh, like there's certain things that don't quite line up to where they should be. But I think it is a nice uptick from the old Blu-ray, and I think it's worthy of watching. Just know that it is kind of more one of the more mixed bags from Paramount. The Blu-ray carries over all the special features. It has a commentary track and a making of featurette and a couple other featurettes as well, that are really a nice assortment of things. The video is Dolby Vision, and I originally saw a listing like on Blu-ray.com that said this is going to have Dolby Atmos for those who are interested. That is not the case. It is Dolby True HD 5.1. It sounds good, but I don't want anyone thinking that this has Dolby Atmos and then get surprised. It doesn't. It has the True HD 5.1. Sounds really good, but overall, it's a good release, but I want Paramount to just take a little bit more care, because they have such a great catalog. I want the best from them, and they do support the 4K format. I just want them to support it to the fullest.
Yeah, that's such a shame because first of all, I get this confused with Not Another Teen Movie. So there's times that I'm like, wait, is Chris Evans in this in a like banana split bikini? But no, that's the
no. Ollie Larder's in the banana split bikini, but she does not turn around to have a banana in her ass like Chris Evans does.
Or I like, there's I don't want your life, and
yeah.
My spin on that is I don't want your lunch. Yeah. Nice. But yeah, that's disappointing. But yeah, the movie we're kind of recall being sort of middle of the pack, but it is something that I probably have a little bit more nostalgia for. But yeah, that release sounds like meh. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's not terrible. It's just there's a few moments where there's downturns where you're like, this could have been nearly perfect, but it's just mainly like very good. Like I don't want to take away from its good qualities, because it's often fantastic. It's just there's those few times where you're just like, oof, that didn't quite hold up right there or something. So it's just I can't say it's a perfect release because I don't want to lead people astray. There are a few moments that aren't quite optimized.
Room for improvement.
Yeah.
So my next title, I've gone away from Kino for now, but we are into Warner Archive territory with Tarzan, the Ape Man. And this is the first Tarzan film with Johnny Weissmuller and Maureen O'Sullivan. This was, of course, made by the director of the Thin Man series, or most of them. And it's kind of wild. I feel like I've seen this before, but it's been a long time. So this was really fun to revisit. And one thing I do want to mention, and I want to really give Warner Archive a lot of props for, this movie definitely has a lot of really dated elements. So much so that there's a disclaimer at the beginning, and I think really so much of it is a damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? but I think that's the correct way of handling it. It's to put it in the proper context. And while it's good that we don't embrace these outdated elements anymore, I think it's also perilous to ignore them. And that's what the disclaimer basically says. So that out of the way, how is the movie itself? Well, I think it's pretty fun. I can really see where this movie was kind of the template for a lot of the other Tarzan movies, and indeed a lot of the action adventure movies as a whole. I mean, this is by no means the first action adventure movie, but I feel like it's early enough where I think it also kind of helps set some trends. But yes, again, it is still a product of its time. It has a lot of not great depictions of what they consider native people, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But also, the film is very spicy. It's pre-code. It has some nudity. It has violence. There are definitely scenes where it's like, holy shit, I can't believe they did that. And interestingly enough, again, I'm beyond fascinated with like pre-code films, and this film, along with Sign of the Cross and a few other movies, really kind of were what pushed for the Hays Code to be enacted and strictly enforced. And this would be enforced from 1934 to maybe even like early 70s, late 60s, early 70s. So for a long time. The movie itself, it's a fun romp. It's silly, it's campy. Again, it's a little cringe, but it's not hard for me to understand why this was so popular. It's pure popcorn escapism. Now, what's kind of really cool about this release is we get a almost 90-minute long documentary on the making of the film, and again, its place in pop culture, which is really fascinating. I think like that all by itself could be a standalone release, but it's very cool that that's its own special features. And we get a couple cartoons that fit the theme, so it's a fun release. Picture wise, it's not as pristine as some other Warner Archive titles, but you also have to consider that this movie is, in a decade, this will be 100 years old. So you have to kind of give it some leniency. Footage, especially from the beginning of the film, looks a little rough, but overall, you can tell it's been cleaned and scrubbed, and sounds really great. I'm always impressed by the big sound like Warner Archive is able to get from some of these older films. And I mean, across the board, another really great restoration from Kino. Again, this is one that is so wild that it got made, especially when you think about older movies. You don't think about them being like risque or scandalous or anything, but this really was sort of like probably the only like Tarzan movie from that era that has this kind of material. So for better and for worse, of course, but it's pretty wild. I liked it overall.
That is one that I've always heard about, that era of Tarzan, Johnny Weissmuller, I believe. But I don't believe I've ever seen any of those. But I was very intrigued. So much so that I wanted to do something special because I saw that on the slate for this week. I pulled out a couple titles. I'll do them one by one to kind of go along with that in celebration. Also from Warner Archive, they released this one, I believe it was in 2018. This is Tarzan's Greatest Adventure. So this is one of his efforts. I believe it's from the 60s, if I'm not mistaken. And this was one back when Gordon Scott was playing the character. And this one is considered one of like kind of the top Tarzan movies, because this came after a long, like, this character's been adapted so many times on screen, and this came after several adaptations, and the producers decided they wanted to shake things up a little bit. And for this adaptation, Tarzan doesn't really speak in like ape speak as much. He can more so do like full sentences, and it's more of like a larger than life adventure. Like, he is facing off against these like thieves who have like stolen these jewels, and he's trying to protect his environment and all the animals around him. And then of course there's always a woman who kind of falls into his midst that he feels like he needs to protect. And there's all these elements, and one of the main interesting aspects of this particular outing is it features a young Sean Connery, and it is fantastic to see him. Like, and it's not just a bit role; he's there throughout. And he was actually supposed to potentially return for a sequel, but he had gotten and he agreed that he would, but he couldn't go to that. He said, "I will return probably in the future. I've been contracted for this little spy feature, but after that, once I'm done with that, I'll get back." And of course, James Bond. So he never returned to the series. But so right pre James Bond, Sean Connery is in this, along with Anthony Quayle. And this is a really fun, like pretty brutal adventure at some point. So, like there's some really crazy violence and action, and just like the spectacle that is on display within this one is very impressive. And it's just a really fun adventure film. Like, not as much as your entry, but there are some dated elements within this. It's not terrible, but there are some. But if you're a Tarzan fan and you're just like in the mood after the new like Johnny Weissmuller, try Tarzan's Greatest Adventure, because this is a really like visceral, like fun version of it. And I think it'll like for like action fans, I think you'll really like this version.
Nice. I don't own that one, but I think like after getting into this one, especially when you said it's like one of the one of the better, if not best ones. Also, really fun fact, really quick. Cary Grant apparently was offered the role, the James Bond role, in the first. Which is wild to me to imagine that. But I mean, I think he could do it, but it's just Connery is so iconic in that role. So my next title is so it's a series that's very long, and I'm still like digging my way through it. So bear with me here, but this comes from Film Rise, and that is the complete series of That Girl. And here, so this is DVD, and I have to say I am not super impressed with this release for a few reasons. The packaging kind of looks a little hokey pokey to me. I'm just being honest. And it really just doesn't have, I don't know. Like, I don't feel like a lot of effort has went into this. So, but let's take a look. So these are how the discs are laid out. You also just have to be really careful because these are always prone to break, no matter how like good intentioned they are. It's So as for the series itself, it really is fascinating because I had never really watched this before getting this box set. And I really like how, it's taking this, I don't know what it was, maybe second or third wave feminism, and really like propping it up into a show that is really funny, very smart, particularly with my next title, maybe not as like witty, but like, you can tell the writers are very old school. It kind of almost makes me feel like the screwball comedies where everything is riffing really quickly and the banter is like really on point. It's a fun series. I mean, it has a great cast. Marlo Thomas is fantastic. It's such an iconic show too. I mean, every time she like throws up her hat, like you've seen that parodied in like a million things. It's really cute. I mean, some of the jokes feel very like 50s-ish. I don't know if it ever really was like pushing the envelope too much, but so far it's fun. It's not groundbreaking. I mean, maybe it was for the time because we're just so used to having female-led shows. So maybe this is definitely more ahead of its time than what I'm giving it credit for. And if that's so, I apologize. I don't know, what was this, like the 60s? So like I was not even like begun to be conceived thought of. So I have the benefit of hindsight, but yeah, it's fun. Like I said, I'm still kind of going through the first season. The old school shows had a lot of episodes.
Mhm.
But I wanted to cover this. The DVD itself, it looks fine. I can tell that they took these from really good elements, but I don't understand why we couldn't get a really nice Blu-ray quality show. I'm not looking for 4K. I know that's a lot to ask. I don't know if I can think of any classic shows that have been like 4K'd, like none spring to mind anyways. But
Yeah.
yeah, a Blu-ray would have been great. I just did like the Leave It to Beaver series, and that looked fantastic. That was Universal, and I think a lot more resources was probably put into restoring that. Again, they don't look perfect. They don't look awful. It's just kind of mid. It's fine. Again, it doesn't look terrible because I think the film elements were like nicely taken care of. But yeah, you can tell there's spots where the definition lets you down a little bit. So
Yeah.
I would love to see maybe a Blu-ray release of this. It's not quite as egregious as my next title, but we'll get into that when the time is right. But this is fine. Like I said, I'm enjoying it, but I think I lose a lot of context because I wasn't really alive at that time. So I think there's a lot of jokes and things that maybe go over my head. But if you're a fan of this series, that's great. If you grew up with this or it's very nostalgic for you, I think it is a affordable release, but it's not spectacular.
Yeah, that's a series that I've actually never seen. It's always been on my radar, but I've always wanted to watch it. I'm not sure if now is the time. Do I wait for a Blu-ray release? Will I turn to dust before that happens? Who knows? But I probably at least see if it's maybe streaming somewhere where I can at least get a few episodes for context, but to see if maybe I want to pull a trigger on the DVD set. But I've always heard good things, so I'm excited to check it out at some point. My final title, as I hinted at earlier, is another connection to your Tarzan title, but I'm going even a few more decades after my last Tarzan adventure. And this is one of the very earliest Warner Archive releases. This is back from 2013. And this is Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes. I want to make sure it wasn't King of the Apes. Lord of the Apes, and with a young Christopher Lambert as Tarzan. And it feels like all of these Tarzan eras have a little bit of like a different flair to this. This is more of like your epic storytelling, like classic adventure where this starts off with like you see his parents going with a young baby to tour Africa and like go kind of like on a safari and explore the area. This is back in like the 1800s. While they are there, they get attacked by these apes and they get killed, and the apes take in young baby Tarzan and kind of raise him to be one of his own. And a long stretch of this movie, for probably like at least 15 minutes or so, is like wordless except for like ape grunts, and like you see Tarzan like growing up in the jungle and like learning like how to be one with all of them. And this is done through, I believe, the special effects work, like the like monkey suits and stuff that were created by Rick Baker, I believe that they said in the commentary track. And so while it is a little bit hokey at some points, I think it's better than like they made a point to say there are no like digital effects included in this time and like included in this, so this is all practical effects. So I like, because you can't get like real gorillas and apes to like interact with humans like this, like that they did like the monkey suits and they work out well enough. They don't really take you out of it. And this kind of evolves into like this tale of Tarzan being eventually rediscovered and taken from the jungle back to his rightful place, like in the like England, where he's like supposed to be the ruler of this manor, but he doesn't know how to live in the society. So it's kind of this duality of like staying true to his roots of being like from the jungle and like wanting to honor his parents where they came from, and like whether or not he should like take over this estate. And there's a lot of clashing of cultures and classes and just like misunderstandings and stuff. It's much better than I expected it to be, because I didn't really have high hopes for this. But if you like kind of like that big sweeping like kind of 80s and 90s epic, this one fits the bill. It actually, I was very surprised. This starts with an overture, and I was just like, oh, okay, I was not expecting that. And not, it doesn't have an intermission. It is pretty long. It's 2 hours and 37 minutes long. So it's a pretty long movie, but it did keep my attention throughout. And I think it evolves pretty well. And like, it's about half and half between the forest, like the jungle, and the like English manor, like fish out of water tale. But both parts are pretty well done, and the performances are good. It's a really solid movie that was, like I said, much better than I expected to be. I just really had low expectations, but with all this Tarzan content coming out, I wanted to try a couple different iterations to see how it's going. And Greystoke, it worked for me. I thought it was pretty solid. And for being one of the first Warner Archive Blu-rays, I'm very happy to say they've been killing it since the beginning. This is a really nice looking transfer. It's like really vibrant and like not much in the way of like nicks or scratches or anything. They've all been meticulously restored. Maybe not quite as impressive as a 2023 Warner Archive Blu-ray, but it's a really beautiful Blu-ray. And I think anyone who picks it up, I don't think they will be disappointed. So this does come with an archival commentary track and a trailer. The commentary track's pretty solid. I think there was, I've seen some criticisms online that the commentary track didn't get into some of the elements of like there was some controversy surrounding this movie, including Andy McDowell's voice being dubbed over by Glenn Close without like anyone like knowing, because I guess they didn't like Andy McDowell's voice, which I think is wild. But other than like them maybe omitting some things out of like them not being able to talk about it, it's a pretty entertaining commentary track. So Greystoke, if you like swelling period dramas with like a Tarzan twist, it's pretty fun.
Nice. So out of the the Tarzan titles, which one would you say was your favorite?
I actually liked Greystoke a little bit more. As a narrative, I think there's more to it. If I was just wanting more like pure like adventure and action, I would go for Tarzan's Greatest Adventure. But like for like an enjoyable story, I think Greystoke's a little bit more satisfying.
Nice. Yeah, that's really cool. So if y'all are anything like me, this gives me a really fun jumping off point into some of these other movies. And I also have a good feeling that, and I'm not basing this on anything, but I hope this sells well, because I would love to get some of the other Tarzan films. I believe there are like 6 or 7 other ones. I mean, it was very popular. My final title is one that I was really excited about, but there is unfortunately there is a big but here. But that is the Dick Van Dyke Show, the complete series, and this is also FilmRise. Now, I think this overall packaging and design's a little nicer and less sort of, as I said, hokey pokey than the last one. But here is an example of the discs. These also have the it's the gatefolds, but they're a little bit different. So they're kind of like this, but you also have to be really careful because there's kind of no give here. And I think I know what you're getting, but
I know your criticism, so I'm getting ready.
Yeah, well, as you're probably going to rightly point out, that this had Blu-ray releases for the whole series. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was that also FilmRise, or is that another?
This is Image Entertainment, unless they change their name. I guess it's different, but yeah, this is from Image. So
Okay.
it's all. This came out a while ago. I think this was like 2013 or 14. This came out. I've had it a while, but yeah,
okay.
I saw you were doing this, and I was like, oh, they're capitalizing on just people who are DVD only, I guess.
Yeah, and that's again, it's probably not a bad gamble if you're reaching an audience that maybe skews a little bit older. Like you might want to just do a DVD only release, but I honestly kind of would have if you're really, I don't know. I feel like for the Dick Van Dyke Show, you can afford to do a DVD only and maybe like a Blu-ray only release, or maybe package them together. I think, I mean, that would cost more, but I think overall it's just nicer. I'm not mad at how these look either. They look fine. Again, I think it's just they took really good care of these original materials. But yeah, you can kind of see where it's a letdown a little bit, especially when you do have those Blu-ray options. As for the show itself, I mean, it's fantastic. It's one of those where the writing is just on point. The acting is sublime. Dick Van Dyke is hilarious. Like he is sort of the Jim Carrey of his day, where he could just do very great physical comedy. He had great timing. He had like charisma. Just everything about it just makes you smile and makes you want to be invested in this world. And it's just a shame that we didn't get like a deluxe, really amazing set. But if you are a little bit more budgeted, this probably is maybe a little bit of a better release if you're not wanting anything with all the bells and whistles and stuff. I guess in theory you can probably still, is that out of print? Do you know the Blu-ray?
I think it's still available, so
Okay.
it shouldn't be too hard to track down. I don't
Yeah.
I don't think it's out of print as far as I know.
Yeah, and I mean, if y'all are fans of WandaVision, obviously the black and white segments were heavily inspired by the Dick Van Dyke Show, and there was a really cool rumor that Dick Van Dyke was going to be featured in that show as Mephisto, and it never happened. But holy shit, that would have been cool, and how like awesome would that have been to tie in with the old school sort of sitcoms that they were riffing off of. But anyways, it's still a great show. It's very funny. It's one that I haven't seen the entire series yet, but I mean, you can tell the writing crackles. I love how everything feels a little inside baseball with the writing and being a writer, but it never feels like it alienates the audience. It always feels like you're still in on the joke. Maybe if you don't get the references, it still won't, won't take away from you enjoying the comedy. And yeah, it's great. I just kind of wish that it would have been better, but it's cool to have it. But yeah, it's, you definitely want to keep that Blu-ray release if you have it, or maybe if you really want it. You said it's still in print, so I can link where you can get that in the description as well. So you have that option. But yeah, I was a little bit disappointed. I try not to end on a down note, but it is a great show. So that's the high note. I wanted to save the best for last. It's just room for improvement. And maybe if this sells well enough, maybe they'll do a Blu-ray, a new master. You said that was from 2013. So that's like over, gosh, 10 years old. I feel so old.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that is our episode. I am so happy to be back, and we're going to be doing this regularly again. It's so much fun to talk home video releases, and please chime in on the comments. We'd love to hear from you, what you think of what we've talked about this week, what other new releases maybe should be on our radar. I know I'm kind of getting caught up on the last couple months / the new months, so it's going to be a little bit of a hodgepodge of a few months till we get all caught up. But hey, that's life. We're all getting sort of acclimated to the new year. So, but please give this video a like and again comment. Please subscribe. Everybody is like killing it at Geek Vibes, not only on the writing and the website, but the YouTube channel. T is back doing her top 10s, which I'm obsessed with. We have interviews. We have really cool, I mean, gosh, we have like content almost daily on there. So you want to be subscribed to check that out. And as always, thank you for hanging out with us.